We're on page 1046. Yesterday, we were speaking about the first bizarre or difficult to understand mitzvah in this parsha. And now we get to what is possibly the most difficult to understand mitzvah in the Torah. It's one of them, and it needs an explanation. We have to get through, we have to figure out how this works. Okay, so we said the guy has two wives, and he hates one of the wives, and that's the one that he took from the battle. And then, at the end, the bottom of 1046, Ki yeh le'ish ben sorer umoreh. When a man has a son, a rebellious son, the word sorer means he strays. Moreh has a double meaning. Moreh could mean he rebels, and moreh also means he instructs. We'll see what that means. Ki yeh le'ish ben sorer umoreh einenu shomea b'kol avivu v'kol imo. Does not obey. Literally mean he doesn't obey the voice of his father or his mother. V'yisro oso v'lo yishma aleihem. And they punish him, they bring him to Beis Din, and he doesn't obey them. And they bring him to Beis Din twice. Once they warn him, once they whip him. But then he does it again. We'll see what it was that he did. V'tafsu bo avi v'imo v'otzios zikta iro el shar mekoma. The parents take him and they bring him to the elders. V'amru el zikta iro b'neinu zeh sorer umoreh. Our son is rebellious and he's straying and rebellious. Einenu shomea b'kolenu. He doesn't obey us. Zolel v'sove. He's a glutton and a drunkard. What we call a teenager. So what's the halacha? Urgamu kol anshe iro ba'avadim v'meis. They stone him to death. Ubiyarta ara mikir becha. You shall remove the evil from your midst. Chol Yisrael yishu v'yiro. All the Jewish people shall see this and they shall fear. What is going on here? So the Gemara describes the halacha. A ben sorer umoreh is 13 years old, and it's the first 3 months of physical maturity after 13 years old. If during that period he consumes a certain amount of meat and wine, which he took from his father's property, and it's only cooked part way, like built on. It's only cooked part way. It's barely edible, and he drinks a quantity of wine. Under those circumstances, in a certain age, it's right at the onset of physical maturity, within that time frame. And then, if he's done it repeatedly 3 times, then the parents bring him to Beis Din and they stone him to death. I mean, that would certainly trim the high school population. And if we applied it nowadays, everybody's thinking, hey, that sounds like my roommate in college, So he's a glutton and a drunkard. So what's going on here? So the Gemara says, before anything, why are we executing people for overeating? Teenagers who raid the refrigerator. I mean, that's where they live. They live in the kitchen. Everybody wonders, what do teenagers do between lunch and supper, when they're eating lunch and supper? Lunch and supper just means they're taking a break from other eating. That's all. Then they're sitting down. That just means they're sitting down to eat. That's all. I mean, okay, so what's going on here? So the Gemara says, there never was and never will be a ben sorer umoreh. The circumstances that are necessary, that it's got to be a certain age and a certain quantity, a certain cook to a certain level, taken from a certain place, with parents who have to be, neither of the parents could he be an amputee, and the parents have to have the same physical, they have to be matching each other physically, and they have to have the same voice tone. The circumstances are so remote that you're never going to end up with a ben sorer umoreh. So why did the Torah write it? That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says there never was and never will be a ben sorer umoreh. So why did the Torah write it? So the Gemara answers in Sanhedrin, drosh v'kabel schar. Study it and you'll be rewarded. Now, at the plain meaning, it sounds like, well, like every word of Torah is a mitzvah. And here we get like almost a freebie. Hey, listen, let's study this, which doesn't apply, but it's certainly interesting subject matter. So let's study this, and we get reward for learning Torah. That's what it sounds like. But that's not the, that's certainly a possible interpretation, but that's not the real, that's not what's really going on here. Study it and be rewarded means the Torah is telling you obviously conveying a life lesson here. What happened to this guy? What's going on here? So now let's go back and see the words. Ki yele ish ben sorer umore. So I told you that the word umore could mean rebel. It could also mean instruct. This is the kid who is, instead of taking instruction from his parents, he instructs his parents, like all teenagers. They know better. The teenagers all know better. There's a famous line, there's a very famous line, that I think it was Mark Twain. He said, when I was 14, my father knew nothing. And when I turned 24, I was amazed at how wise he became in 10 years. Somebody once said, the older I get, the smarter my father becomes. Did you ever hear that expression? It's very true. All of a sudden you start understanding. You get a little older, oh, that's what Dad was taught. When you're a teenager, no one knows anything except your friends who are teenagers who are as wise as you. Other drug addicts like yourself, only they are other drunkards and gluttons like yourself, only they're smart. Your parents, what do they know? A couple of decent people who are hardworking and pay taxes, what do they possibly know? That your friend who's barely alive because anything under 80 miles an hour never makes it in his car. But he's a guy that you want to listen to. So number one, he's a Bensora Umora, he instructs. And one of the things that wayward kids do is they instruct other kids. They instruct, they're a negative influence on other people. So he's a Bensora Umora. Einenu Shomea B'kol Avivu V'kol Imo. Now pay attention carefully. Torah says, study this and you'll be rewarded. That means like this. What does it mean he didn't hear his father and didn't obey his father and mother's voice? He didn't listen. He didn't hear his father and mother's voice. So one of the ideas here is that parents have to be on the same page. If the kid didn't hear, when the Gemara says his parents have to have the same voice, I mean, a woman who sounds like a man is a problem. You don't want to marry a woman who sounds like a man. You know what? I certainly don't want to marry a man who sounds like a woman is also a problem. Do you know that the Gemara actually asks why women have a melodious type of voice? Do you ever see when women talk, they don't even talk, they kind of sing to each other. Men are just going, yo, whoa, like that. So the Gemara says, well, where do men come from? Men come from the earth. The earth is a very deep, if you bang on the earth, there's a very deep. Where do women come from? They come from a bone. Ding! Right? A bone. The Gemara says that. You think it's a Kaplanism. It's the Gemara says that. And therefore women have a pitch to their voice. Kol Be'isha Erva, a woman's voice is actually considered that you can't listen to women singing. And a woman has it because of each one, where they come. Men come from the earth, women come from the bones. And a bone's got a ping to it. So now, parents have to be on the same page. Obviously not going to have literally the same voice tone, but parents have to see eye to eye. What's the Torah telling you? If a kid is raised in a home, this kid, what did he do? He went and he stole from his father and he gluttonized. And the Gemara says, you know why he's executed? The Gemara says, Nidon al Shem Sofo. We judge him based on a future projection. What's a future projection? Well, if this guy is already gluttony, if he's a drunkard and a glutton, right at the onset of physical maturity, that means right in the foundation of his life, he's on this track. So we know what's going to happen. He's going to become addicted, and eventually he's going to need his fix, and eventually he's going to murder somebody. Therefore, you know what? Let him die innocent. Yomu zakai val yomu chayv. Let him die innocent, not die guilty. Take him out of commission right now. But we don't literally do it. We don't literally do it because the Gemara says it never was and never will be. There never was and never will be a Ben Sora Amora. Yet the Torah is telling you, look at the kid. If you see a kid is on this path, you could be sure that down the line there's going to be trouble. And we don't see, in our world, it's not that difficult to understand. Most crime, a lot of crime, a high percentage of crime in our world is because of people who are addicted. People who are stealing because they need drug money. So we said Torah precedes everything. Torah know all about addictions. And this guy's going to get addicted to meat and wine. His behavior is going to be such that he'll stand at a crossroads, he'll try to rob people, and eventually he'll murder somebody. It's interesting. What's the punishment for murder, by the way? Punishment for murder is beheading. Punishment for murder is beheading. So why does he get the worst form of punishment? Why does he get stoning? Because he might murder somebody on Shabbos. Shabbos is skila. That's the worst punishment. So, but at the end of the day, it's a projection. What's the Torah telling you? When does he get this? Only if the parents sound alike, if neither one is an amputee. I mean, there was no trauma in his life. If there's trauma, so we could always attribute it to that. If he grew up under perfect circumstances, which is also why there's never going to be a Ben Sora or more, because there are no perfect circumstances. There are no perfect circumstances. But assuming a kid is raised with a perfect relationship between his parents and perfect social circumstances, and he does something like that, listen, take him out of commission. A kid who's doing it because there's some trauma in his life, that could be helped. We can work on it. We'll counsel. Therapy. A lot of therapy nowadays. Everything. Therapy and counseling and that sort of thing. Nowadays it can be taken care of. If everything is perfect and the kid is he's out of control, there's only one form of rehabilitation. Execute him. That's the best way to rehabilitate him. Let him die innocent and not die guilty, says the Gemara, but there never was and never will be. There never was and never will be. So what's the Torah telling you? He doesn't hear the sound of the voice of his mother and his father. His parents are not on the same page. No wonder there's a problem here. Parents they don't communicate properly. Husband and wife don't communicate. Husband and wife have to communicate respectfully. Do you know that when you're married, I guarantee you, and you can ask anybody who's married for any great length of time, like about 10 minutes, I guarantee you and your spouse will have disagreements. I guarantee you. It can't be that two human beings coming from different backgrounds are going to agree on everything. But the fact that you have a disagreement doesn't mean you have to turn unpleasant. It doesn't mean you have to raise your voice. It doesn't mean you have to use personal insults. You disagree. Okay, so I disagree. Who says I have to have it my way? Who says I have to have it my way? So you disagree. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, this is documented. Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, when his wife was nifter, do you know that there's a tradition when one spouse dies, the other spouse approaches the body at the funeral and apologizes. It's a tradition. Rav Shlomo Zalman, when his wife was nifter, he approached the body and he said, listen, we've married over 60 years. You know as well as I do that in 60 years of marriage, there was never an unpleasant word exchanged between us, and I really have nothing to apologize for. But there's a tradition, and therefore I'll apologize. He said this in front of about 10,000 people. Can you imagine? So somebody said to one of his children, to one of Rav Shlomo Zalman, his sons are big Talmidei Chacham, said, how could it be your parents were married over 60 years and never had a disagreement? So he said, my parents had many disagreements. My parents had hundreds of disagreements. But just to have a disagreement doesn't mean you have to turn unpleasant. You talk about it. I say this, you say this. Okay, we'll do it your way. What's the problem? It's very simple. It's very simple for me to say it's simple. Not as simple as it sounds. But then why should you get unpleasant? So he didn't hear the parents talking nicely to each other. Number one. Number two, what sound should you hear from your father in a Torah home? What should you be hearing from your father? You should be hearing your father studying Torah. What should you be hearing from your mother? Hearing your mother saying Tehillim. Einenu shomea b'kol avi v'kol imo. He never heard his parents davening. He never heard his mother davening. He never heard his father learning. Well, what do you want from the kid? What do you expect the kid? Expect him to learn Torah if his father doesn't show Torah as a value? Kid has to see that his parents think Shabbos that Torah is a value. So a person understands, the kid feels, listen, my parents didn't do this. They talked a good game, but they didn't really live it. You know how many times it's happened? How many times it happens that a guy comes to the rabbi. He says, Rabbi, guy not religious, comes to the rabbi. Rabbi, can you talk to my son Steve? Every rabbi knows what that means. You know what that means when he says to the rabbi, can you talk to Steve? What do you think it means? It means Steve's engaged to a shiksa. That's what it means. Could you talk to Steve? That's what it means. So the rabbi calls, Steve comes in, and the rabbi says, Steve, I heard you guys say, you know what the defense is? He says, my parents never sacrificed anything for Judaism. They didn't keep Shabbos. They didn't do anything for Judaism. Now I got to go and sacrifice the girl for Judaism? What kind of hypocrisy is that? What are parents supposed to say to that? Yeah, but I knew a kid's situation. This was a real pie in the face. There was this guy came from the Orthodox community, and eventually he went off and he joined the conservative movement. He sent his kids to conservative school, sent them to conservative shul, everything was conservative. And then eventually his son came back from college. Steve was engaged to Maria. And the parents weren't happy. He said, don't worry, she's going to convert. So his father says, just do me one favor. When she converts, have her convert Orthodox. He said, what the heck? You raised us conservative. You sent us to conservative. We davened in a conservative. All of a sudden, conservative's not good enough. When it comes to me, it's not good enough. My girl's not good enough. All of a sudden, everything for you is always good enough. So what kind of kid nails you? What kind of business? So your father's telling you, I want you to be frum. I want you to study Torah. Don't talk in shul. Never see that where the father says it's going, shh, daven. Then he turns to his friend. I got a real good tip. I got some bonds that you're not going to believe. I sold short, and so the kid sees. That's what the father does. The kid sees exactly what the father is. So that's saying, you didn't hear your parents. You didn't hear what Velo Yishma Aleim. So what do? They take this Ben Sora Mora out, and he's a Zolo V'Sove. So what do they have to do? They have to go and they stone him to death. So again, the Gemara says it never happened. It never will happen. So why does the Torah talk about it? Drosh v'kabel schar. Study what the Torah is telling you about raising children. Study what the Torah is telling you about improving yourself. Even more. Look at the last pasuk on 1048. Pasuk, 4 lines to the top. Urgomu kol anshe iro ba'avonim v'mes. They should stone him till he dies. Ubiarta harami kirbecha, and you should remove the evil from your midst. V'chol Yisrael, all the Jewish people will hear and they will see. So one of the Hasidic masters, he says, you know what the pasuk's telling you over here? You want to affect other people? You want to have a positive effect on other people? Take a look at how the pasuk reads. Uviarta harami kirbecha. Get the bad, the evil out of your own midst. Then you know what will follow? V'chol Yisrael, Yishuv, then all the Jewish people will see. If I work on myself, and that's, by the way, how you're raising children. Raising children is working on yourself. In other words, people say to you, what's a good book for raising children? The best book for raising children is the Mesilas Yesharim. Study that. Study a Musar book. Study the Orchos Tzaddikim. Work on yourself. Kids see what the parents are. That's a rule. We've spoken about this in the past. And what you are, I tell you, this little girl comes over, she grabs an apple. A 5-year-old girl. So the father says, Chani, you didn't make a bracha. He says, I did make a bracha. He says, I didn't hear you make a bracha. He says, no, I'm big now. I can make it softly like adults do. And when kids are mad, make a bracha. A kid makes a bracha. Make a bracha. I tell you, what about adults? So the kid says, hey, good, I can't wait to be an adult. Then I get to mumble also. Even Rav Shlomo Zalman, who I mentioned earlier, Rav Shlomo Zalman and his wife, who never had a nasty word exchange between them, so they weren't sitting at a table. So Rav Shlomo Zalman ate something, he drank a cup of tea. So he said to his wife, he finished it, he said to his wife, ooh, did I make a Borei Nefashos? He didn't remember if he had a, so his wife said, well, you mumbled something, was that the Borei Nefashos? Even the Gedolim. Even the Gedolim, how do you like that? So that's the first thing the Torah is telling you. Okay, now go further. Because this is full of mitzvahs over here, but I want to get to specific ones over here. The Torah is going to talk about hanging people, about burial, talks about returning lost objects, and then on page 1050. And unfortunately, this is extremely applicable today. And I say unfortunately, you'll see why in a second. Lo yeh kli gever al isha. A woman must not, literally, how does he translate it? Male garb shall not be on a woman. A woman is not supposed to wear male clothing. V'lo yilbash gever simla sisha. And a man should not wear women's clothing. Oh, could you imagine such a thing? Unfortunately, we don't have to imagine. Ki so'avas Hashem Elokecha kol osela. It's an abomination. Why is it prohibited for a woman to wear man's clothing? Why is a man? So Rashi says because it's generally for purposes of immorality. So a man wears a woman's clothing so he could what do you call it? He could infiltrate the girls' dormitory. Nobody will know that it's him. A woman wears man's clothing so then she can infiltrate the male dormitory. And if it's what do you call it? There's an effect, by the way, Kabbalistically, you don't even put it on your children. You don't put girls' clothing on little boys. You don't put boys' clothing on little girls, and it can actually bring out certain tendencies in them. So, for example, nowadays where women dress like men, so women seem to be more aggressive than they used to be. Women behave like men, and you have men who behave like women. And so the Torah says that you're not allowed to do that now. Now, the extension of this is anything that is unique to a woman, a man's not allowed to do, and anything unique to a man, a woman's not allowed to do or wear. So for example, a man is not allowed to shave any parts of his body other than his beard, other than his face, and obviously the hair. But he can't shave his legs, he can't shave his armpits, he can't shave his, what do you call it? That's anything that a woman would do, a man is not allowed to. It's considered unique to a woman. Not only that, they're supposed to say men are not allowed to look in mirrors. Because nowadays it's a little more lenient because it's considered so, even for men, you look into a mirror to make sure that there's nothing gooey on you or there's nothing, you don't look, there's nothing inappropriate. But to go and preen yourself in front of a mirror, for a man to stand there in front of a mirror and think, wow, Hashem did a pretty good job here. That sort of thing is unique. Women shamelessly have a piece of equipment, it's like hexagonal, that's got mirrors on it, and they shamelessly call it a vanity kit. And think about that. I am vain. I am focusing on myself. And they have these, you ever see these vanity kits? They can look at themselves from angles that I think that the United States military doesn't have that kind of equipment. And a woman has, and if you ever want to stop a woman, ever watch, go like in a hotel lobby. It is almost a physical impossibility for a woman to walk past a full-length mirror without stopping. A woman she can be in a hurry to save somebody's life. Somebody's drowning in the river. If there's a mirror there, she'll and go. What do you call it? And when I really needed my daughters, when I needed them to do something, I'd take a note. I would put it on the mirror in the hallway. Because I know my daughters are going to be there. They're going to be by there. They may not be in the kitchen. They may not be in my room. They're going to be by that mirror for sure. They're for sure by to be there. For a woman, so in the old days where you didn't have mirrors, were not accessible. People used to get with me. You look at your reflection in the water. They take a piece of glass and try to stain a piece of glass. So it was a piece of equipment very unique to mirrors. Men have today. There's actually different opinions among the poskim in their tefillin bag. There are men who carry a mirror to make sure that your tefillin is straight or not too low, and so on and so forth. That's not a time to be checking to make sure your hair is well combed. It's socially acceptable nowadays for a man to look in the mirror to make sure you're presentable. That's okay. To make sure your tie is straight, that your hair, that's presentable. But to go and do something unique to a woman is forbidden. That's why a man is not allowed to carry a purse if it's something unique to a woman. If there's let's say there's an umbrella, a pink umbrella with little hearts on it, which is clearly a woman's umbrella. A black umbrella is not. They could go either way. There are certain things that are not necessary. A woman is not allowed to carry a weapon because a weapon is unique to men. A woman is not allowed to. That's one of the problems among many others. It's a relatively minor problem, but it is a problem for girls to be in the army. This is one of the problems. There are much bigger problems. But what's that?
Is that true for self-protection? Like still women aren't supposed to carry weapons?
For civil, if you're living in a place where you need it for self-protection, then pikuach nefesh supersedes everything.
Like your wife or daughter needs you to carry something for her,
You could carry something. You can't wear it. I could carry my wife's umbrella. I could fold up her umbrella and carry it, but I can't use her umbrella. There are certain things that are neutral. Certain things are neutral. But for example, what do you call it? For a woman to carry a weapon is a problem. For a woman to carry a weapon is something that's unique to men. Yeah.
So what happens when it no longer becomes unique to a woman, for example, like wearing pants where it's...
So then you have a different issue. It depends what kind of pants, and it depends what kind. There is a certain amount of social determination. You look at all the pictures of the time of the base, men wear robes. Like the Arabs, you see they wear these robes. It's a robe unique to a man. What do you call it? In Scotland, they wear kilts. Now, a kilt is completely different than a skirt, because a kilt is a very big piece of material that wraps around. And it was actually worn by a certain division in the Scottish Army, one of the fiercest divisions in the Scottish Army. And if you've ever seen the kilt, part of the design of the kilt is they have a dagger that goes into the socks. That's like what you wear. Men, some wear a tie clip. They wear a dagger. That's part of the design. Now that's unique to men. I actually had a funny situation here in Ohr Somayach. We had a guy here from Scotland who was getting married. So from wedding, men are on one side of the mechitza, women are on the other side of the mechitza. So this guy was from Scotland. So I get to the wedding hall, and as I walked in, I noticed a bunch of skirts. So I figured, I'm on the wrong side of the mechitza. So I started going to the other side. I saw skirts on the other side. What happened? These guys, his relatives and friends from Scotland came in. They were wearing kilts. We look at it like, but for them, that's in Scotland, that's considered. To walk around in Israel in a kilt on the streets of Israel might be problematic. I don't think if you walk down the streets of Mea Shearim with a kilt, you might get killed. I don't. This was inside the wedding hall. I don't know. But that's what the Torah is saying. And the ultimate purpose of this, and this is something that we see in our world today. We see where people not only wear clothing, they change themselves, or at least try to change themselves. This is what the Torah calls that an abomination. The Torah says it's an abomination. Again, by the way, there's an interesting medrash when the Jewish people were fighting. And when Yael killed Sisera, remember Sisera ran into her tent. And what did she do? She took the Nach says he ran from the battlefront because the Jewish people had won the battle. He was running and escaping, and Yael said, "Come into the tent over here." And so she got him. She got him. She got him tired. She gave him wine, and she put him to sleep. And then she took the tent peg, and she used the tent peg and spiked him through the temple. She killed him with the tent peg. What's the obvious question? The guy's asleep. Take a hatchet, take a sword, chop his head off. Why are you using a tent peg? You know what the Medrash says? She didn't want to use a sword because a sword is a man's It's a man's weapon. And she didn't want to take a sword because it's forbidden for a woman to use a sword. So she took a tent peg. Again, if a woman would be in a situation where let's say you're living in a dangerous neighborhood, she has to carry a gun with her, that sort of thing, that she'd be allowed to do because it's pikuach nefesh. That's pikuach nefesh. But anything that's unique from one to the other, that you're not allowed to do. Okay? Clear? Any questions on that? Okay, let's take a look at the next. Ki yikare kan sipor lefanecha baderech. Also one of the bizarre mitzvahs in the Torah. When I say bizarre, I mean bizarre from a human perspective. We don't understand it. Ki yikare kan sipor lefanecha baderech. When you come across a bird's nest, which means it has to be in public domain, not in private domain. B'chol eitz o ala oretz. There's a bird nest in a tree or on the earth. Efrochim o beitzim, they're little chicklets or eggs. V'ha'em rovetzes ala efrochim o ala beitzim. The mother is hovering over the chicklets or the eggs. Lo sikach ha'em ala banim. Do not take the mother with the babies. There's a mitzvah. What is the mitzvah? Shaleach teshalach esem. Shoo off the mother. Ve'abanim tikach loch. Ve'sabanim tikach. Then you take the children. L'man yitav loch ve'arachta yamim. It'll be good for you and you live long. Now, here you have what's called an easy mitzvah. What's the Torah's definition of an easy mitzvah? Anybody know? Cheap. That's right. That's an easy mitzvah. Where else do we find an example of an easy mitzvah? Anybody know? Sukkah. Building a sukkah is called an easy mitzvah. Really? Never tried to build a sukkah? I never found it easy. You know why the Torah calls it easy? Because most people, if you build a sukkah, where did you get wood? You got wood from Hefker. You went out to the forest, you took some wood, you went out, you chopped some wood down. So it didn't cost you anything. That's what's called an easy mitzvah. That's what's called an easy mitzvah. We're Jewish. We have no trouble understanding that. That's what's called an easy mitzvah. If it's cheap, it's called easy, not exertion. Okay, this is an easy mitzvah. Not only it's easy mitzvah, you benefit. What's going to happen? In those days, gentlemen, you didn't send away the mother bird and find a tray of a dozen eggs, stamped XL, extra large or number 3s. It didn't work that. The chickens didn't conveniently lay eggs in a carton for you, right? Where did you get eggs from? You took eggs from wherever you found them. Yeah, pasteurized, homogenized, whatever it is that they're supposed to do to the eggs. I forgot what is it, pasteurization, that sort of thing. Forget about that. You got some free eggs. Says the Torah, I got it better than that. I got the mother and the bird. Just grab the whole thing and bring it home. Nice little bit an egg and a little bit of chicken for a little bit of a little bit of pigeon for supper. And we're good to go. Says the Torah, no, send away the mother bird. Send away the mother bird. Why? What's going on here? So the basic is by the way, do you know that there's an opinion that you do the mitzvah even if you don't want the eggs? You send away the mother bird, pick up the eggs and make a kinyan and put them back. There's an opinion that you do it even if you don't want them, simply because the Torah says it's a mitzvah. Why? Kabbalistically, it activates a mercy on the Jewish people, various Kabbalistic reasons. But at the end of the day, it's exeris akosiv. The Torah says do it. And you're not even allowed to say in a prayer, Hashem, your mercy reaches, the Gemara says, somebody who says, Hashem, your mercy is even on birds, have mercy on the Jewish people. We're going to plead to God. Your mercy reaches the birds, so please have mercy on us. No, we don't say that because Hashem's decrees are not because of mercy. Hashem's decrees are because Hashem decreed it. So why do you do it? Exeris akosiv. Send away the mother bird, take the eggs. There is such an opinion. I once did it, by the way. We were living here in Maladaf, and I was in 135. One day we had we had a balcony. We were renting. We had a balcony. And on the balcony, we had, for some reason, there was, I think one of the sukkah boards was leaning up on the balcony. And right under the sukkah board, also there was a nest. And we see this mother kept coming back, there are 2 eggs. Eventually they hatch a couple of chicklets over there. So I asked the Rav, because there's a problem, it's on my property. So he said, make the property hefker. Because it has to be, the Torah says you have to find it in a hefker area. So you make the property hefker, and then what I have to do is shoo away the mother birds and pick up the chicklets. So I called one of the guys from Ohr Somayach. I had one of the friends come up and protect me with a broom. I wanted him standing there for protection in case this man-eating pigeon would attack me. I was never very bold of heart. And so I was nervous, and I just picked up these little chicklets and put them back down. I was more scared than the chicklets. I picked them up and I put them down, and eventually they got older, and eventually they flew away. So it's questionable whether I fulfilled the mitzvah because I have to make it hefker, and I was renting it, and then they'll say, but he said do it just in case. You might be fulfilling the mitzvah. There is an opinion, and I certainly wasn't going to take those chicklets, where we weren't into eating those chicklets. So that's there is an opinion. Now, there are explanations here. Why is it that you can't take the mother with the children? Why not? So I saw there are 2 beautiful explanations. Explanation number 1, and this is interesting because it follows the Ben Sora Ramora. If you take the mother and the chicklets, what are you really doing? You're stopping anyone else from benefiting. It's all about me. You're grabbing up the whole thing, the eggs and the mother and everything else. Take the eggs, send off the mother, let her nest again, and let her lay more eggs for other people. Think about other people, not living alone in the world. Think about other people. Why do you have to take everything for yourself? That's the first thing the Torah is telling us. The Torah is telling us, it's not just about me. You live with other people. Don't take the whole thing. Number 1. Number 2, did you ever try to catch a bird? Did you ever try to catch a pigeon? What are your chances of catching a pigeon? Go on the street, catch a pigeon. Did you ever catch a pigeon? Try it. You ever catch a pigeon? Anybody, any of you pigeon hunters here? Any of you ever catch a pigeon? A sick one, shkoyach, right? A sick pigeon, right? Got him, bang, got that sick pigeon again, right? You can't catch a bird. What do you check? There's only one reason you can even catch this mother. You know why? Because the mother is sacrificing for her children. Torah says, don't take advantage of a mother that's sacrificing. So a mother sacrificing for his children, don't go taking advantage of somebody else's self-sacrifice. You're really brave and tough when they're willing to sacrifice. The mother is sacrificing for her babies. Torah says, don't take advantage of the mother. Don't take it. It's a beautiful idea. Mother, what's the mother do? What does every mother do? Mother does nothing like a mother. The mother sacrifices for her children more than anybody else. Torah says, here's a mother bird sacrificing. Don't go and take advantage of this bird while the bird. Number one. And number two, try to think about other people. Leave for other people. I heard a beautiful story of Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the Rosh Yeshiva, the Mir Yeshiva. So I've been asked this every year. Rosh Hashanah is coming up. And on Rosh Hashanah, you have the shofar. So people ask all the time, what should I be thinking about while the shofar is being blown? Does it ever cross your mind? What should I be thinking? The shofar is blown. Didn't even cross your mind. What do you think about? Wow, what a nice sound. There are different ideas. The sacrifice of Yitzchak and the shofar recalls the giving of the Torah at Har Sinai where there's a shofar. What should I think about when you're hearing the shofar? You must have wondered this sometimes because you're hearing 100 sounds 100 times. What am I want to do tshuva, I want to do this, I want that. What should I think about? So Bacher once came to Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, the Rosh Yeshiva, and said, what should I think about during the shofar blowing? So Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel said, think about other people. I love that answer. Think about other people. That's a good idea. That Yiddishkeit, which I've always told you, Yiddishkeit is not only vertical, it's horizontal also. People think of religion in terms of me and God, and it goes upwards. It also goes sideways. There are other people living on our planet. That's what the Torah is teaching you over here. The Torah is teaching you, you know what? Yeah, it's accessible, it's available. Just because it's available doesn't mean you have to grab it. You could leave something for other people. Just because it's accessible, so what? And that's what the Torah is teaching you with the mother bird. Okay, one more. Take a look at Pasuk Yud. Very interesting twist. Pasuk Yud. Lo sacharosh b'shor uvachamor yachdov. Don't plow with an ox and a donkey simultaneously. You see where it is? Pasuk Yud Aleph. Now, if you look at the pasuk before this, look what the pasuk before this says. Pasuk Tes. Lo Caesar karmacha kilayim. Don't sow your vineyard is a forbidden mixture. Pentikda shableya hazer shetizra utvua sakar, because it will cause that the seeds that you plant become forbidden. So you're not allowed to cross seed. You're not allowed to cross seed with your in a vineyard. Not what's called what's it called? Hybriding. And then it says, don't plow with an ox and a donkey together. And then it says, don't wear shatnez, a forbidden mixture of wool and linen. So the Torah gives us 3 examples of forbidden mixtures. Where else do you find forbidden mixtures in the Torah? There's another 2 places I could think of. Where else can't you mix? Wool and linen it mentions here. Wool and linen it mentions. What's that? Milk and meat. Can't mix milk and meat. What else can't you mix? Can't mix, you can't cross-breed animals. Here the Torah says you can't do work with 2 animals. You can't have an ox and a donkey. It means any 2 types of animals you can't have them work together. Here the Torah says you can't have an ox and donkey pull your plow. Why not? First let's focus on this before we get to the other. Why can't you have an ox and donkey pull your plow? The plain meaning is, the plain idea is that an ox and a donkey are not equal strength. So if they're both pulling the plow, either the ox is going to have to overcompensate because the donkey is weaker, or the donkey is going to have to exert himself more than normal to keep up with the ox. But either way, there's a form of tsar balei chayim here. There's a form of animal suffering, living creature suffering. One of the commentaries says it's because an ox is a kosher animal and a donkey is not. An ox chews its cud. So you got the ox and the donkey who are pulling this plow, and the next thing you know, at 11 o'clock, when it's time for the 11 o'clock snack, so there's the ox is up, and the donkey is like, where'd you get that from, bro? Where'd you get the food? And I said, oh, I brought it up from my stomach. I got 4 of them, So the donkey will hear the ox eating, and that's a form of what do you call it? Okay, that applies if it's 2 non-kosher, but you're not allowed to cross animals and do work because the basic reason is that it's going to be uneven levels of exertion. But listen what's really going on in the Torah. This is fascinating. This is fascinating. You get up in the morning, what's the first thing you do? You get dressed. You have a reminder when you get dressed, don't mix. Then you go to breakfast. What don't mix? Don't mix your clothing. No, you're getting dressed, don't mix, no wool and linen. You go to breakfast, don't mix, no meat and milk. No bacon with your coffee. No meat and milk. You go out to plow your fields, your agriculture, don't mix. You go out to your, to your livestock, no crossbreeding. You go out to, what was the last one? Your crops, no hybriding. What is the Torah teaching you? In your clothing, your food, your livestock, your crops, everywhere a Jew looks, there's a reminder, don't mix. And that's ultimately the reminder to us that when it comes to the other nations, don't mix. And it doesn't just mean don't intermarry. It means don't mix with their values. They've got nothing for us. We have what we have over here. Leave it. We don't mix with them in any way. And everywhere you look, a Jew looks, your food, your clothing, your work job, everywhere you look, the Torah is telling you don't mix. Thank you very much. Couldn't come at a better time. All right, we'll continue, B'r'tzeh Hashem.